Good morning and welcome home to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Reverend Joanna and my pronouns are she, her. Thank you for joining us this morning. We who bring a teaching of hope, we who bring a saving message, who welcome all in our doors. Jewish and Muslim, humanist and pagan, straight, gay, lesbian, and bisexual, cisgender, transgender, non-binary, and intersex. All who are searching, seeking, looking for more meaning, more service, more love, all of us gathered here together. I'd like to invite you to put your phone on what we call the worship mode, which means that it's not going to make any sounds during the service, but you are absolutely encouraged to use it to send out photos or clips of some things that you see here, maybe even an invitation to a friend to join you here next week. Would you please rise now, either in body or in spirit, and join us in singing Blessed Spirit of My Life, number 86 in our hymnal. And please remain standing for our chalice lighting.
Our chalice today is being lit by Kason. This is a congregation bound not by creed, but by covenant. May those in agreement affirm our church covenant now. We affirm a caring community of and for all ages, seeking wisdom, doing service, and living with integrity. In our diversity, our covenant holds us in unity as we celebrate our shared spiritual journey. Good morning. I'm Renee Garcia, and my pronouns are she, her. One of the many things I love about this church is that it is so welcoming. Every person can find a space where they are seen, valued, and embraced for exactly who they are. I'd like to welcome any guests we have today. We're so happy that you took the chance to walk through our doors and join us for worship. If this is your first time here, please stop by the visitors table so we can meet you and answer any questions you have. This church is buzzing 7 days a week, and there are a lot of ways for you to connect with our beloved community beyond Sunday. The best way to keep up with what's happening is through our weekly email newsletter, and you can sign up to get that at the visitors desk or by going to our website at liveoakuu.org and click on What's Happening. A couple of things happening this week is the men's group, which will meet on Thursday, July 3rd at 7 p.m. in room 205. And there's also the community SAC lunch, which meets on Wednesday at noon in the fellowship hall. And we'd love to have you join us for those. Our call to worship is by Adam Slate. We gather this morning as one community, a community united by common ideals: love, justice, diversity, freedom, mutual care, equity. Yet look around. Look at the faces of those around you. Yeah, actually do that. Each face represents an individual. Every one of you has your own story, needs, strengths, and faults. Let us honor our common connection and also the uniqueness within each of us.
Each Sunday when we gather as a congregation, we bring our joys and sorrows with us into this room. And when we ask for remembrance or celebration or prayer or thoughts, we make of this sanctuary a sacred circle. And let's see. Daria shares, I'm going home next week to spend time with my family in Serbia and Croatia. I'm very happy and excited. See y'all soon. I will be back. And Benson shares the joy. I am now 8 years old. For all of our joys and sorrows, spoken and unspoken, we bear witness with our care and concern. Please join me in singing.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
Good morning. I am Chris German. I'm your Director of Faith Development, and I use she, her pronouns. And I have a question for you today. For those of you that are in the back of the room or on video streaming this morning, I have two pictures. One is of a sprout just newly coming up out of the ground, fresh and young and growing. And then I have a picture of a lush green plant, full and vibrant. Which one of these is more important? I'm looking for answers. Sprout? Some people say the sprout. Both? Both? Yeah. You're right. They're both important. They're both important. Some may say that the blooming one is more important. Some say that the sprout is more important. But we need them both, right? One is just getting started, and the other has had more time to grow. But both are alive. Both need care. Both are a part of something beautiful. That's kind of like the people here. It's kind of like people on their spiritual journeys. Some of us are just beginning to ask deep questions. Some of us have been wandering and learning and growing for a long, long time. And just like the plants, we all grow at our own pace. Sometimes when someone is trying to do the right thing, maybe they say something kind or they try to be helpful or to share an idea, we might notice that they say something in a way that we wouldn't have said it. Maybe they spelled something wrong. Maybe they used a word that's not quite right. Maybe we think, don't they know better? And we might be tempted to jump in and say, actually, that's wrong. Or, you should have said it this way. I wonder if any of you ever been shut down in the middle of sharing an idea? Have you? Yeah. Here's the thing. When we correct someone too quickly, especially when they're trying their best, we shut them down. I know when somebody does that to me, I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes I have a really strong Southern accent. And people will correct me on what I say. And then I go, well, what was I saying? Because I can't remember, because now I'm thinking, what am I saying? How did I say that? You shut me down. You shut down my idea. It's like stepping on a tiny plant right as it's beginning to grow. Instead of jumping in, we could learn to hold space. That means being kind. It means being curious. It means listening. It means saying, I see what you're trying to do, and I am so glad for the trying. And sometimes it means holding our tongue, just listening. That means choosing not to say something, or not giving the right answer. Because what matters more in the moment is the connection and the encouragement and the building of a friendship rather than correcting or showing what we know. We can still help each other learn and grow, but we do it with gentleness. We ask, can I share with you something I've learned along the way? Can I show you something that you might not know yet? Instead of saying, let me fix this. Let me fix you. So next time someone like your little brother, maybe your big sister, or your friend says something, and you feel a little itch to correct them, pause and ask yourself, is this the moment for me to teach them? Or is this a moment for me to love them? Because when we create space for each other to grow, we are living into our UU values, especially love and learning and respect. So let's take a deep breath together. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. Let it out. Now say with me, we all grow at our own pace. We all help each other to love. And with that, amen. Blessed be, and our story is told.
Our reading today is an excerpt from A Theology of Community Organization by Reverend Sean Neil Barron, delivered at last week's UAA General Assembly. Back to the bar. It still smells like stale beer and possibility. I'm clutching my drink, stumbling to figure out what the hell to say, and my husband, who is used to my social inadequacies, introduces himself to the woman who has just said a nice thing about me that has caused me to seemingly malfunction. This prompts me to remember what the socially appropriate thing to do next is. Hi, my name's Sean. What's yours? It's so small. But you know that moment when someone not only asks for your name, but 3 weeks later when you run into them at the grocery store, they pull it right out. Hey, Sean. And suddenly you think to yourself, holy cow, I'm worth remembering. I'm not just another face in the crowd. I'm not just interchangeable human being number 4,721. I'm me, and somehow that matters. It's so small, but it changes everything. Because when I know your name, conversations start to deepen. I might get to hear what you like to do, what makes your heart race with excitement. As trust builds, I might get the privilege of learning where you're really from, not just the zip code, but who shaped you, what broke you open, what put you back together. And then, when I know where you're from, I might hear the raw edges of your pain, what keeps you up at night, which always, always leads to glimpses of the powers hiding inside each of us that might just change everything. It's so small. Just remembering a name, just asking what matters, just listening to someone's story. But here's what I've learned. When you take someone's grief and mix it with their glimpses of power and their deepest passions and give it time, you don't get followers, you don't get volunteers. You start to assemble family. And family is messy. And family is beautiful. And that's why you can't organize strangers, because strangers don't bleed for each other. But people who know each other's names, who've heard each other's stories, who've seen each other's scars and gifts, who have invested in each other. Organizing isn't about convincing strangers to join your cause. It's about creating the conditions where strangers become people, seeing your lives and liberation bound up together. As a covenantal people, the core of our religious practice is the resistance to objectifying one another. Covenant is a meeting of equals. There is no coercion in covenant.
Are you a Unitarian Universalist or a Live Oaker? Hopefully, some of you would say both, but they are not precisely the same. You see, in our faith, we have independent congregations. Live Oak is an independent, a free Unitarian Universalist congregation. We pay our own bills. We elect our own officers on our board. We just did that this past May. We make our own decisions. We create our own covenants. Every Unitarian Universalist congregation has its own covenant just for them. These are our promises about how we are going to be with one another. We do have an association headquarters, but they serve us, not the other way around. You will never have, as the Methodists do, no one is ever going to call up and say, we are sending your minister somewhere else. They can't do that. I became your minister, whether you want it or not. I became your minister by a vote of this congregation. This church gets to decide those things. So by the way, if you have an issue with that, find someone who was a member in 2014. Blame it on them. You also, unlike the Catholic Church, no one is ever going to call here and say, we're selling your building. We're closing you down. They do not have the authority for that. The authority of this congregation is this congregation. And so often when we have people who are visiting us for the first time, I will say to them, hey, I hope, I'm biased, I think that this is the best, but I encourage you to visit the other UU congregations in our area, because if you have seen one UU church, you've seen one UU church. Our values are often the same, but our priorities, our culture, the way we do things are going to be different. And this goes back to our earliest history. For those who don't already know this, be prepared for a shock. It is kind of a shark. Our earliest history, we came from the Puritans. They are our theological grandparents, and they created this thing called the Cambridge Platform. Now, we, especially on the Unitarian side, when we left the Puritans, are often at that time like literal grandparents, we rejected many of their theological ideas, but overall, we kept their ecclesiology. Ecclesiology is the branch of theology dealing with how religious movements do governance and how they organize each other and how they are in relationship both within their congregation and outside of their congregation. And so this isn't just, when you think of like governance and organization, you may not think theology. But for them and for us, it was deeply theological. Because the Puritans, for all of their faults, and there were many, sermon for another time, they believed that every individual was able to access the divine directly. That you did not need an intermediary. You did not need a priest to explain to you things like what Scripture meant and to be in relationship with the divine. And so an extension of that is that when it came to deciding how to do church, they did not believe that there were certain people set apart that God had picked to be bishops to tell congregations how they should run things. And so this is something that if you look at our org chart today, again, you may not think of it as a theological document, but it is. You will see at the very top, the minister is not at the top, the board is not at the top. The congregation is at the top. We believe that the best authority for making decisions about the local congregation is the local congregation itself. Last week I was at our General Assembly. We are an independent congregation, but we are also interdependent. And in that same document, the Cambridge Platform, they also laid out that aspect, the fact that we should be in relationship with all of the other congregations that are part of our religious movement, that we should, and it has words in there about how we should support each other, how we also can give each other reproof. So if we feel that another congregation, another UU congregation is doing wrong, the word they used was admonish, the admonishment clause. We can admonish them. I'll look to our religious educator over here. I haven't heard any stories of us doing that since Puritan days, but we could. Give us time. So what we also do is we come together once a year, the Unitarian Universalist Association. And often when you hear us use that term, UUA, we're talking about like the headquarters, but the thing is, it is us. Yes, we have people in positions, including one of our members works for the UUA, But the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations is us. And so once a year, we come together, we take care of the business of our association, voting people for different positions and whatnot, deciding on, okay, where should we put our priorities this next year? Is there a particular area that we should study this next year? And by the way, they said yes, and that it is prison abolition. You'll probably be hearing more about that from us this next year. But also what we do is we talk. We talk with people from other congregations, and we say, hey, what's working in your congregation? Here's what's working in ours. And this year's theme was Meet the Moment. And that's kind of a challenge, isn't it? I will tell you this, being really frank, I came away from GA with a lot of inspiration, a lot of ideas, but I also came away with renewed gratitude for our congregational polity. That is this thing of the fact that we are each individual, independent congregations. Because from talking to other UUs around the country and my colleagues, a church or a leader in Massachusetts right now has no idea what it is to be a Unitarian Universalist here in Texas. And any advice that they could have specifically about that, about living out our values in this context, it's not going to apply. So that independence is important. But so is this interdependence and these questions, because we do still have these questions of what does it mean right now to be a Unitarian Universalist? How do we meet this moment? And again, isn't that a confusing question? I mean, this week I found myself at times agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene on the subject of war, and then Governor Abbott, who vetoed the THC bill, and I, like, who am I? What am I doing here? It is a confusing time in which we are living. So part of the Meet the Moment is also to know, gets a little bit of data about who we are. So right now, there are a little over 1,000 UU congregations in the U.S. There are a few scattered other UU congregations around the world. And of those, there's approximately 70% of those congregations have fewer than 150 members. We have always been outsized in our influence as compared to our numbers. But I do think that this is also, like, it's a reality check. I don't know about you. I think what this world needs is, frankly, for that first number to be 10 times what it is. Thank you. And I say that not out of a lust for power. I wouldn't mind a little more power, but I know one of the gifts of being the minister here is that people share their stories with me. And so many of you have told me about how this church has changed your life, and it has changed it for the better. And then we can go out into the larger world and try and make that world better too. And we're doing that. I was left overall with one big question. So James Luther Adams was probably the most influential theologian, Unitarian Universalist theologian of the 20th century. And there are so many stories told about him. Here is one, and I know that most of you, if you've been here for a while, you've already heard this story. I ask you to be patient and listen to it again as if it's the first time, because after going to GA, I have a little bit different take on it. So it was 1948, And JLA he was a professor, but he was also a member of the First Unitarian Church of Chicago. It was 1948, and their church was still segregated. We don't want to admit that about Unitarian Universalism, but that's the fact. There were still congregations that, we tend to be on a far edge of progress, but we still represent the times in which we are living, something that we need to remember when we are in the times that we are living. Okay, what are the things that our grandchildren are going to look back that we're doing and kind of cringe about, right? So he is a member of the board of this church, and they are debating desegregating. He and the president, are absolutely trying to work to have this happen. And there is this one holdout on the board, this one man. They are debating and arguing and discussing this into the wee hours of the morning. Finally, JLA, as he's called, says to the man, "What is the purpose of church?" And the man goes silent. He thinks about it, and then he finally says, with a sigh, "Well, Jim, I suppose it's to get hold of people like me and change us." This is a story we often repeat in Unitarian Universalist congregations. It's a great story. One of our named shared values is transformation, and it's great for all of us to remember, right? We are here to be changed. Like, you are perfect just the way you are, and as the Buddhists say, and you could use some work. All of us, however old you are, if you're still living, then you are still hopefully growing and learning. But this time, being at GA, hearing people like my friend Sean, who you heard in today's reading, I was struck by the first part of his answer, to get a hold of people like me. And my question is, do we still believe that? This is someone who was a segregationist, right? But somehow he also had values in common with the Unitarians, and so he was there, not just a member, he was on their board. Do we still believe that this is our purpose, to get a hold of people like me and change us? Or is our expectation that before you walk in our doors, you're already changed? You're already transformed. You already know the right language to say. This is not an easy question. I don't think that there is a simple answer to this. I do think that a lot of it probably comes down to covenant. It comes down to us separating out ideas from behaviors, because this congregation, part of who we are, is we are unambiguously, unapologetically progressive. And anyone who comes here, especially those who have been most marginalized by our society, by, frankly, this week, the Supreme Court, deserve to feel safe here. You should be able to come here and never have to worry that your gender identity is going to be questioned, that your relationship identity will be, that you will have to deal with racial microaggressions. This should be a safe space. And also, where is the gap between that and between saying, but you have to already be there? We are not going to meet you where you are. You pretty much have to already be in this community of knowing all the right language and thinking the right way. When I was in seminary, I went, by the way, to a Christian seminary. I had this professor who liked to push on people, on fundamentalist Christians or conservative Christians. And the question that he would give them was this: is God's grace smaller than bad belief. Now you imagine being a fundamentalist Christian. Bad belief, like we would put it in quotes, right? Bad belief. For them, they would not put it in quotes. For them, bad belief is literally the difference between heaven and hell. It is the step into eternal punishment. I used to enjoy kind of watching them squirm with that, right? Because none of them are going to say God's grace is smaller than that. Now many of us, would not even use the term God. In case you don't know, I'd say at least half of the congregation here identify as atheist. I do think, though, that we believe in love. I hope we believe in love, because one of the things we do share with all of the other UU congregations are these shared values, and what we say all the time is, and the center of it is love. Everything that we do, transformation, equity, interdependence, it is guided and shaped by love. So let me put the question to you. Is love smaller than right belief? Kind of a hard one, right? Right now, when we see people whose beliefs are wrong, and it is okay to say it is wrong. If you are questioning the whole issue of sex assigned at birth and whether your gender can be different, and you say, no, it's absolutely the same, okay, no, that's just wrong. If you are believing that people are not born of equal worth and value, if you think that some people should be treated with less dignity because of their gender, their sexuality, their race, their immigration status, I think that it is okay for us to say, yeah, you're wrong. And is love smaller than bad belief? Sean, in this talk that he gave at GA, which I'm going to be, as soon as it's available, I'm going to be sharing with everyone, because I think that it was excellent. He talks about going to a drag event, and how he's looking around and he's remembering his baby gay self and what it means to feel enveloped in a community, what it means to feel that feeling of belonging. And he said, and I had the strangest thought, I think this is why people go to Trump rallies. We're going to hit pause for a moment, and I'm going to ask you to hold some complexity with me. I am not equating a drag show to a Trump rally. But I am asking a more human question, the more heart-centered question, not about how they arrive at the feelings, but the longing that drives them. Building a culture that says you belong always wins. Look at a Trump rally. It's not a policy briefing, it's a revival meeting. People wearing the same hats, chanting the same chants, feeling like they're part of something bigger than their own loneliness. They've built a culture where showing up angry feels like coming home. They give angry people a home, isolated people a tribe, powerless people a target. And it works, because building a culture that says you belong always wins. I am just going to say this, and only take this personally if it's helpful. Sometimes we progressive and religious liberals, we forget that people don't join a cause. People join people, not ideas. People join people, not institutions. People join people, not issues. Say it with me. People join people. Since 2016, so many of us have struggled with this question about love versus bad belief. And it hasn't been an intellectual exercise for us. We have struggled with it because we're talking about people who we love. We're talking about neighbors and friends, and most excruciating, family. And right now, yes, we have our principles and we need to work for them. We need to figure out appropriate boundaries. But I think asking people to suppress your love, I don't think that's the right way to go. And I know this, going back to this question, this idea that the purpose of church is to get a hold of people like me and change us. We can't do any of that if we are disconnected. We can only have influence over people who we are connected to, who we are in relationship with, and I would say who we love. Sean ends all of this by saying, people don't want to be convinced. They want to feel claimed by a we that doesn't dissolve who they are, but magnifies it in a shared power. Is love larger than bad belief? Hi, my name's Joanna. What's yours? Would you please join me in a moment of meditation? Make yourself a little bit more comfortable. If it helps you to go inward, close your eyes. And these are words that have been attributed to 12th century Christian mystic Giovanni de Pietro de Bernardone, who is also known as Saint Francis of Assisi. Love, make me a channel of thy peace. Where there is hatred, that I may sow love. Where there is wrong, the spirit of forgiveness. Where there is discord, harmony. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there are shadows, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Love, grant that I may not so much seek to be comforted as to comfort, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. And let's hold that for a moment in silence. Amen, and blessed be.
are the tradition of the Free Church. Our church and our community outreach are supported not from an outside source, but from within. We invite you to make a financial contribution to help sustain this church's vital work, knowing that every gift, large and small, is appreciated and carefully used in service to our mission. The QR code or text information for donations is available at the back of the seat pocket. If you would like to donate by credit card, Apple, or Google Pay, someone from stewardship can assist you near the kitchen after the service. As we gather in this beautiful sanctuary, surrounded by the peace and serenity of our church grounds, we are reminded of the many ways in which our space serves as a beacon of community and connection. Our doors are open not only to our congregation, but to countless organizations in our wider community, offering a place of welcome, support, and belonging. It is through your generosity that we are able to maintain and share this sacred space, creating a home for meetings, events, and gatherings that uplift and unite. When we have a rare fifth Sunday, the offering is earmarked for special building and grounds upkeep. Today, as we give, let us do so with gratitude for the beauty that surrounds us and the opportunity to extend that beauty beyond these walls. Your offering helps us continue to be a sanctuary of love and service for all. As the ushers come forward to receive the offering, I invite you to say with me these words. We are building beloved community with our labor and with our treasure. With gratitude, we receive the offering. May it help us to fulfill our mission in the world.
Now, let me also be really clear on this. Among many theologies that we have rejected, we have also rejected a theology of suffering that says that there is something inherently worthy in suffering and that those who have been victimized should submit to those who would victimize them. No. Boundaries are important. Covenant behaviors are important. Please don't take anything that I am saying as some sort of instructive that you should go back to a family that does not see you and that treats you with a lack of worth and dignity, that there is any value in that. I am not saying that at all. Sometimes people have to make very clear breaks, and I am right there standing with you. But there is also a lot of other room. A lot of people who would share many of our values, who are simply, they're on the same journey, but they're at a different part of their journey than we are. I think that so often we minimize how we ourselves have been changed and transformed. We learn something new and then we act as if it is something intuitive, as if someone had not had to teach us these things. I'm learning new things all the time. I frequently will say something and someone else will say, hey, did you know that actually has like a racist root? And I'll go, ooh, I don't think I want to say that anymore. Well, boy, Heidi, I'm smarter today than I was yesterday. And again, if love is at the center of our religion, do we really believe that? And are we willing to live out of that? Go in peace, knowing that you are lovable and loved.
People need people. Let's come together after the service today. Here are some ways to connect and learn and grow together. And we hope that you find something that nourishes your spirit today. So our nursery is open till 12:30. From 11:15 to 12:15, these are the things that are going on. The All Ages UU Makerspace is in room 205. Come explore creativity, community through our hands-on projects inspired by UU values. Our youth and our adults also have the choice of meeting in room 105 for The Simpsons, social justice, and we'll be looking at immigration through the lens of Homer Simpson today with Matt. Bring Your Own Practice is in room 208, and that is upstairs, and they will be looking at the spiritual practice of shielding. Tabletop reflection questions are in the fellowship hall, where you can always go into deeper conversation with people here about what you heard in today's sermon, and we invite you to do that, or even take a picture of it and take them home and journal it for yourself to think about what we're talking about here today. Out there, you'll also find there's a table for TexUJM, Texas UU Justice Ministries. Today is their Appreciation Day. We are doing it in UU churches across the state of Texas to write a thank you note to the staff at TexUJM and to maybe make a donation to help their work continue, because, whoo, did they have a year, and they're ready to go back and do it all over again. At 12:30, the meditation group meets in 208. So however you choose to engage today, we're glad you're here. This is a welcoming community, and we work together to empower dreams, encourage growth, and embrace joy. There's a place for you here.
Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 1023, Building Bridges, and remain standing for the extinguishing of the chalice. And now Kaysen will help us extinguish the chalice. Please say with me these words. We extinguish the flame here, that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. It's been such a gift to be together today. Thank you to today's home team who provided hospitality and worship and tech leadership. That includes David, Oliver, Cassandra, Larice, Dawn, Hannah, Nancy, Melissa, Mark, Christina, and Kaysen. Let us continue that hospitality by taking the next 5 minutes to talk with someone we don't know, Members, be sure to introduce yourself to any visitors we have. Those are the folks with the paper name tags. And show them where to find the visitors' table and the coffee. And may we all know the blessings of fellowship.